Please be aware that the content in this podcast may be unsettling for some listeners. It discusses mental health challenges and contains references to depression and suicide. If this story brings anything up for you, please talk to someone you trust. You can also free call or text 1737 to connect with a trained counsellor day or night.
Kia ora. Welcome to Hear Me, See Me, a chance to hear young New Zealanders share their experiences, speak their minds, and maybe even change yours. I'd like to introduce you to Jett, whose passion for music helped him navigate his mental health challenges and also understand himself emotionally.
So I was 9 and I was very, very scared about 3 major things. People in my family dying or people in my family splitting up or diffracting, because I'd kind of seen it happen. I also had a major fear of asking for help more than normal, not just from a mental health perspective, but for any task. My biggest fear, anything that made me look like a beginner or still does to this day, nearly sends me to panic attack level because it's showing my vulnerability. I don't want to be like that, but it's just how my brain's deep set works. I got diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder when my little sister, her lungs collapsed. Yeah, that was pretty traumatic because it wasn't just happened once, it happened and then it happened again. So I remember that's what triggered my OCD initially. Very scary when she actually stopped breathing and I was there. So that was quite intense. Yeah, after that I went home and my life changed. I was walking around every night, counting everything, measuring everything I did. I'd count to 100 and then I'd count every step. And also at the same time as that happened, my big sister left home and went to England. She was 16 or 17. Yeah, so I didn't understand really anything that was going on. And I was starting to get really kind of identified at school as a trouble student back then because, I was undiagnosed ADHD. I was very energetic with my way of dealing with things. I've had some good teachers in my life who would identify the attributes that would get called negative and they'd identify them for what they were as positive and just say mischanneled. I ended up in that stage though with a bunch of people surrounding me who just didn't understand. On top of that, I'd never ask for help in these things. It would be I wouldn't know how to do anything simple and I'd just leave it and be okay, well, I'm born not to do these things. And so I kind of grew a lot of unhealthy patterns from that throughout my life, in that you either do something and be their best at it, or you just don't do it, because the only thing that matters is not showing any vulnerability. I've gotten so much better, but it's still very difficult to me to show any sign of weakness. Got through the early years. I was about 10, and probably the biggest turning point in my life was when I started playing music that year as well. My family, like I said, very, very loud. We talk 24/7. My family, we argue 24/7 and we sing 24/7. Every single one of us. It was actually my dad who completely put me into it. He was the first one who planted the idea in my head of just being able to express myself. I remember being in the car with him and he said, man, OCD and stuff, you're going to have this forever, but also you can use it as a gift when it comes to music. After that, went to a school talent show. When I was 10, I won it, and then from then it was just kind of knew what I wanted to do, and so music was really my big therapy as well. So I'd go into a music classroom and be told, right, you're gifted, you're blah blah blah, but you get me in a room and try and teach me a bunch of chords and shit, I'd be out. And I couldn't sit in there for more than 5 minutes without leaving. Music teachers would be look, you have all this talent, but you don't belong here because you don't work. Musician's about training, you don't have any of this, you've got no discipline. So this whole world that I'd kind of thought was me completely came crashing down on me because I had no discipline. Exactly the same with the sporting world, because I was quite talented in some ways, but I didn't fully belong there, because in those environments I'd go in and want to be the absolute most dominant and not vulnerable. And the idea that I played music was a completely vulnerable thing, and people would make fun of me for it and stuff. So I was very lost, very caught in between, because neither world seemed to want to accept me. Kind of just being barreled by everything around me. I was 12 or 13 when I really started struggling with mental health again. I completely put the guitar down, and it was probably the worst year of my life. I got really, really depressed. Like, I stopped going to school, I stopped hanging out with everyone, and that was because I was no longer able to bullshit my way through. In the past, people had said, like, you've got no discipline, you've got no blah, 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 but I still had the ability, lucky enough, to bullshit my way through those low levels, so it was always seen as, like, this guy doesn't actually have any problems, he's just lazy. He can achieve, but he's just a lazy, you know? And so I got to this age where people started catching up with me, was because they actually learned good habits. Because you get into the age in life where good habits matter, and I just had none. Like, I'd go home, try and play guitar, I'd sit there for 4 hours looking at a wall, and I didn't understand why. And so, accumulated into the worst depression of my life. Finally, got tested for ADHD, one of those tests that was just like, why didn't I do this when I was 7? Every single question on the test was just like so obvious. My parents read it, even, and just like laughed, because it was just like me. Like, in a nutshell, the test was just like me from a young age, you know? And it was just like made so much sense. So from that day on, I started focusing so much more on my own well-being, because I actually learned what it was. And the biggest thing for me was learning that it was a thing. Those communities I've been outlawed from, well, not outlawed, but felt like I've been outlawed, were because of something that I couldn't control, and that there actually were other people like me. And so just having that first little bit of understanding was already so much. So music saved my life, and it continually saves my life every day. And that actually does come down to it. Every day I get up and I practice and treat it like it's like almost like an athletic workout, how I used to treat sport. Busking was really, really big for me, because it was the first time I had my own like money and also attention, positive attention, not for negative stuff. As well as learning attention from performing, I learned the attention you can actually just give yourself, and the attention and the satisfaction of successfully building up tasks and overcoming them. I could play all these songs, but try and get me to learn a new one, getting me to sit down and do it might take a year. But then once I do it, I'd learn it really quick. And so learning like simple stuff like, okay, I'm actually just going to learn. And so just learning to learn was a really big part of music therapy for me. I had this thing I was really good at, but I felt like it was too late for me to learn the simple stuff, which is so irrational. So I just went back to like the basics and really, really learned to overcome some of that stuff, which really helped. Music just for me feels like I just have a connection to it that I can't explain. That it's not like I want to sing every day, I have to. If I spend days not singing, everything goes downhill, my ADHD patterns get worse. Anything except this physical feeling I have when I don't do it, it feels like the whole day I'm itchy. It's always been the one thing that no matter how bad I feel I'm doing, it feels like I can bring joy to other people through it. Society's quite broken. You can call up a random driver to go anywhere around, but you can't call up someone to save your life very easily at all, or talk about anything. So many people experience mental health, but it's almost that thing of put everyone in a box. Okay, that guy's fine, his brain works good, but that guy's fucking crazy. But it doesn't work like that. For me at least, it was almost like there was no in between of the world of having mental health and then the functional world. There needs to be more of a bridge between being off the rails and normal, is that there's actually a middle ground and it's not black and white. New Zealand has the highest youth suicide rate in the world. The amount of people we've seen now, it almost does feel surreal. It generally just feels like who's next, like every single time is constantly just the risk of it, and it's just really, it's almost like the silent pandemic. I was very, very withdrawn socially. People have spent their teenage years hanging out with friends. And so I've done some of that, but most of the time I never have. And no one will know anything about the story. People know nothing about my feelings. People just see me as like, I was very, very shut off through all these years. Like, it's the whole thing of learning slowly that the grey in between of like being able to accept myself and being able to accept socially as well, and all that negative stuff I've been told, and then having my friends being able to open me up. One of my crucial friends who had, instead of talking to me about stuff, had actually just dragged me to do things, and that was pretty life-changing because I'd see how other people live. So like being with these people completely changed my life, just seeing everything and just like going and seeing everyone, meeting lots of unique characters and just doing, I think. Doing stuff without thinking about the end result or thinking about what other people thought. I genuinely thought that I had no struggle because I'm comparing everything to everyone else. And of course, there's always going to be someone who has a worse struggle than you. There's no point comparing because it's all unique. You need to stop thinking about happiness as like what you should be at, because it's not. People think of happiness as normal, but really happiness is happiness. It's not normal. It's a good thing. And so you need to stop acting like you should be at that level every day, and what you should look at is treat it like happiness is like hunger, right? If you don't eat meals every day, you're going to be hungry. It's just how it is. So to achieve happiness, you have to do tasks every single day to get there. It's like eating, right? If you look back on your day and you've sat around all day, it's the equivalent of not eating anything, and of course you're going to be hungry. Of course you're going to feel sad. But then realising that you've got to help yourself, and that everyone is at the same level of potential instability or stability. You know what I mean? That was a really, really big realisation for me, is realising that we're all humans and that no one kind of has hierarchy over another. I know if I was a school principal, one of the first things I'd do would be discuss openly my struggles with mental health, and I think that would actually change the whole environment of high school. How much a difference it would actually make to show, look, I'm here now, but this is why. It would change it probably more than I could ever imagine, because even recently I got a youth worker, and that was just like one of the most helpful things in my life, because look at where he is now, you know, and he's been in that state you're in, and he's a person. He's willing to share about it, and I think that's like, just for me, is so crucial. If there were people in authority who did it, because as well as there's a call for, say, people of minorities or other ethnicities to be in workplaces and have a representation, which is amazing, there should be the same thing of mental health in all areas of life, and that you should try and employ people with experience in it. There's all this awareness around, right? That's really good, but there's no point in speaking out if the people above you aren't willing to hear it. I'm lucky because I've always loved reading. Lots of books about religion and kind of other cultures. I got really into some podcasts online. I really found a community through the internet in some forms, and the self-improvement online, because I'd never really had it shown anywhere else. Yeah, really lucky on the environments I started to surround myself with through the internet. They would talk about stuff that I was interested in as a young teenager, but then they'd kind of talk about self-improvement. And empathy was a very, very present thing, because it was always very present to just think about other people. I cared about other people a lot. I got lucky because my mum, one thing I really do look up to her for, she spent the majority of her life trying to help people, which has opened me up to a whole world of complete acceptance and helping people that I really never want to forget and won't forget, because it's really been such a big part of my young life. And so always the desire to help was so prominent, and still is. That's the biggest thing I take out of my upbringing, is that I want to be a youth worker one day, not just because I don't just look at it for people to helping me. I really just want to help, and I think that everyone, no matter how much issues you can, anyone can help as well. I can connect with people, and I can showcase how I actually feel. And without that, I would have never been able to do what I'm doing now.
I personally really respect and admire Jett's story that he shared, as certain themes of showing vulnerability were very present, and how sort of music gives you like a natural emotional outlet, and how that can sort of be a gateway into expressing emotions to a wider range of things in your life. Jett was also very fortunate that he could get a diagnosis and find help, but I think another thing that's very important to talk about is people who aren't as fortunate and can't get diagnosed. So I think as a country we can work harder towards diagnosing more people, putting more funding into everything, so we can help improve mental health as a whole. If Jett's story has brought anything up for you, please talk to someone you trust. You can also free call or text 1737 to connect with a trained counsellor, day or night. Hear Me See Me is a safe place for young New Zealanders to share their stories. Please encourage others to listen to them. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story, please email kiora@hearmeseeme.nz or search Hear Me See Me NZ on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok and send us a message. To find ways you can support young people and to see what others are doing, go to hearmeseeme.nz. Kia kaha, ka kite anō.